I want to pivot a little bit to the audience. Thank you for submitting some great questions in the chat. I wanted to give you the opportunity to ask your questions live to the panelists and to each other. Does anyone want to start with a question or even a comment or share a success story or challenges?
One thing that I think is really great is actually to look outside the business world for fresh ideas. We're talking about community. There are professional community builders, right, who do this kind of stuff. And I actually brought in a consultant right at the end. I've just left Sisense, but right at the end, started working with a consultant. He calls himself a ritualist, right, from the art world, and designed some really unique stuff, helped us brainstorm. Haven't yet put it in market, right? But like, it's really interesting to see what's happening in like the art community, even like religious community where they're doing all kinds of unique experiences or spiritual experiences online. So I think it's a nice way to differentiate, to actually look outside the business world.
Great point. A lot to be learned outside of business, right? Especially when it comes to finding creative solutions. Sometimes we're so stuck in our box, you know, in terms of how we do things, that we really need a fresh perspective. So that's a great point. Thank you, Jonah. Anyone else want to chime in?
So I'm just curious, what has been your experience or success with building podcasts?
We've got one that we're building right now. We're doing it. Like, my content team really wanted to do it. So I'm like, go get them, guys. But daggone it, there's a lot of podcasts out there. You know, I think it's becoming as noisy as anything else. You know, everybody pivoted to like, what digital stuff can we do now? And podcasts are just getting really flooded. So I don't, you know, we're kind of doing it as an experiment just to sort of cover the base, I guess you could say. But I don't know about podcasts. I can't keep up with all the ones I'm interested in.
I know, I never have time to watch them either, Murph.
Yeah.
I might suggest as a starting point, because it is a considerable effort to start your own, as identifying those podcasts that are already being watched, that are industry specific, relevant to your audience and you and your brand, and seeing, can you, somehow work a PR angle and get one of your executives featured on it, right? So it's a way to not necessarily build your own podcast brand and get that sort of from the ground up, but get yourself some exposure through the channels that your audience is already watching, as sort of a place to start out. We've seen some good success with that. And then also inviting, again, some of those same people who have podcasts to speak in your webinar. So they're familiar with that format, they're going to be good presenters. So it's low hanging fruit in terms of, and they'll draw the crowd with them because they'll post about it on their following.
Great, thank you, I appreciate that.
We are doing some of that actually the other way. We just did a webinar with a prominent consultant who is, I think, maybe right now recording a podcast episode as well on tangential subject.
Alyssa from Simon Data, would you like to ask your question that you posted recently?
So the roundtable model is something that I'm like probably far too familiar with at this point. My challenge is that they don't necessarily scale, and so we're not able to reach the same number of people, and I and my team can only support so many of those events per month. I'm also finding, and it's less of a question and more just like a rant, but I'm also finding that the people that we have asked to kind of lead these conversations are just as zoomed out as everyone else. And so it's been hard not only to find people to moderate the conversations, but also and like someone that's going to attract other attendees, but it's also hard to scale those.
Thank you for sharing that challenge. Let me address the second piece, which is getting moderators and speakers. Quick question: when it comes to the moderators, are you looking for outside moderators or internal to your own organization, or both?
We typically go to outside moderators, and we prefer to work with our clients, but a lot of times it's always sensitive when you reach out to clients and you don't want to burn that ask too many times. So we also need people to present with us at industry events and all of those things. So
sure.
I have paid speakers. I have which is always fun, and they're very expensive. I have also turned to our advisors. I mean, we've kind of gone all over to find speakers, but we're kind of reaching critical mass in terms of like, all right, we've done 6 roundtables with Google's VP of marketing, like how many more can we do with him? So that's kind of where I'm at with the roundtables. It's almost like I don't even want to do them anymore, but I do understand like they are valuable. It's just kind of like, you know, how it's just a logistical challenge to get through.
Sure. So how do you scale? Anyone want to weigh in here? I'd also welcome some of my colleagues from BDI because that's something we help our clients with.
One thing I want to say about that is roundtables are not scalable, but should they be, you know? So I always think about what is my business goal? And then the business goal should drive the kind of events that you want to host. So, and the deeper in the conversion funnel, you know, the smaller your events should be. So if you want to build brand, for example, a large scale conference, you know, would make sense. And then the deeper the relationship you want to have with the people attending your event you want to be, then it will drive the kind of events that you want to run. So for leads acquisition, webinars, fireside chats make sense because you can't have this kind of one-on-one chats with everyone. So, you know, deeper in that conversion journey, then roundtables, lunch and learns, networking events really make sense. And they're not meant to be scalable, actually. They're really meant to be, you know, 20 people max, I would say, and then being able to really engage and interact with hopefully every single person at that event. So if you want to have more scalable virtual events, I would think of what kind of event types would make sense that is not a roundtable.
Makes sense. Thomas, I totally agree with you. I'd just love to respond to, I agree, it's hard. It's the scalability part is definitely, you know, provides some challenges, but the part that I really wanted to address about the previous question was about the event moderators and getting people who are excited to join and not burned out, and totally understand like this toxic positivity concepts. Like, I mean, we can all be positive on events for so long, but what if the content, going back to content again, if the content is truly fresh and the group of people joined is truly an interesting group, to me, that gets me excited to talk. And I would think that would be this case with moderators. So I think it's really comes back to circle back again. It's like content and community loop together because people will come together and build that community over something new, something fresh, and maybe like, you know, not as product heavy as we've been discussing. That's something a little bit more abstract. I like to think of it almost like a college class, an intellectual discussion. What's going to get people revved up and excited to talk? So that's my response for getting, you know, moderators and people excited. Choose something interesting.
Well, and even think about this event, right? Like you signed up for this event and you are still in this event almost an hour into it. And it's not because you came from my name or Thomas's name, maybe Judy's the big name talent. We're all just coattailing on her. But you know, it's a topic that hurts you right now. And you're coming to this event thinking, what can I get out of it? And I think if you get into your target's head and you answer that question, then the events start to build themselves. And Thomas, you nailed it, right? Go broad for gathering names, go narrow for converting those names into business and finding which ones have projects in the pipeline. But yeah, I mean, we're kind of living the proof right now.
I agree with that. I think the idea of the content and the engagement is so important with this. And, you know, what we were just talking about with this, Murph, is that, you know, this is like our 5th video call of the day, and every one of these things becomes so transactional and so rational that, and you wonder how much percentage of someone's attention do you really have at any given moment, you know, and you just kind of wonder, am I half concentrating on what's really happening or 20%? Just because it all blurs together. So the biggest trick I've kind of trying to overcome is how to make things that are more engaging or more emotional, so that everything just doesn't wash over and nothing stands out. But I agree, it's about trying to figure out that way to really create engagement so that you really have everybody's attention and engaged in it in the right way.
We have 2 challenges. So a quick background, we are Hitachi Group's IT services division. I'm the head of marketing, and we operate in a very niche market, meaning our target is most large enterprises, large and medium-sized enterprises, but very specific roles, very few people within these organizations. So our first and biggest challenge is to find who they are. And we have AG Insights and Zoom Info, etc., and they're good up to a certain level. When you dive into this, you find out that there are multiple issues, multiple errors. Only once we are managing to reach the right individuals, then the challenge becomes how we get them into events, how we interact with them, how we get past the Zoom fatigue that everyone is referring to. So we kept talking here about the Zoom fatigue, but I'm interested if you also have the previous challenge or the initial challenge that I do and how you solve it.
So identification.
Correct.
Okay. And you mentioned you're using Zoom Info as a tool?
Zoom Info, HG Insights, and possibly my sales have additional tools that I forgot.
And I would imagine you're also using LinkedIn too, right?
Oh yeah, of course.
Of course. Okay. So this is something that we do as part of every one of our programs for our clients, which is, and it's a lot of work. We actually have a research team that people that all they do every day is take target account lists at the company name level. Like these are the companies that we want to work with. You probably have identified the companies that make sense to you as a potential customer. And then we look at the persona, which is what's the function? Maybe it's IT, sometimes it's finance, HR, marketing, operations, whatever. It depends on your product and service, who the buyer is, who the influencer is, what the seniority level is, right? What are the types of titles that they have? Are they architects? Are they engineers, etc.? And then once you have all those requirements, we actually go contact by contact. We find that the whole list buying thing just doesn't work. It's all out of date and you're not getting really fresh contacts.
How do you go contact by contact? Give me the details.
Literally one at a time. We do subscribe to the same tools that you do, and there's a few more out there. And but we find that LinkedIn is sort of the ultimate confirmer. So once you find people on the tools, then we go to LinkedIn to make sure that they're still active and that they're actually at the organization, and that they have a legitimate profile. It takes a lot of time and effort to do that. But that's what we do for our programs, just to make sure that every single person that we invite on behalf of our clients is qualified, it's confirmed, and that we're able to identify people that way. So it's not a question of can you do it? Because I think you can. It just requires a tremendous amount of effort to do it, and that's why we built a team to do so.
Yeah, I'm a bit short on manpower. I would surprise you if I'm the only one on the call. I see a few nodes. It's slightly more challenging than take a large organization. I don't know, call it Walmart, call it Bank of America, it doesn't matter, even smaller ones. If I'm selling into the IT organizations, there will be a few tens of VPs of IT over there with various titles, etc. I need one or two specific people out of those, and it's very difficult to identify them from LinkedIn.
Sure.
Yes, we're doing all of that. I was wondering if there are any shortcuts or any things that we miss, but I doubt it.
Anyone else want to comment?
If you find them, please tell me.
I mean, part of the journey, right, is to engage these people, not knowing if they're the right people. But we all know that these big companies, especially the Global 1000, they buy by committee. There's no such thing as the individual buyer anymore. It's like there's all sorts of people who are involved in the buying decision and the buying journey. So what you want to do is touch as many of those folks as possible. And sometimes, you're going to be engaging someone that isn't part of that group, and that's okay, because they might know someone who is, and you still want to make sure that they're exposed to your brand and that they have a positive interaction with you through your events or what have you. Thomas, thank you for sharing that. Is that in regard to the question, the bonsai?
I absolutely love what they do, but to be honest, I haven't used them myself. I'm going to use them very soon. They have a huge list of B2B profiles. So you can be very, very specific in terms of who you want to try to then reach out to. And then you can send emails to these profiles. And then you can also create custom audiences using their data to then send ads specifically to this profile. So it increases the chances of these people then signing up because you will have different touch points with the same people through LinkedIn ads, Facebook ads, even Instagram ads, you know, and then of course through email marketing. So I think that's a very, very powerful way of just being very specific in terms of how you want to try to reach out to, and then sending different touch points to the same profile over 1 to 3 weeks, depending how much time you have to promote your event.
Thomas, were you referring to a specific vendor? I missed it.
Yes, Banzai.io. I sent it in the chat if you want to have a look. Banzai. They're not the cheapest tool out there, to be honest. That's why I'm kind of hesitating right now, but they have a huge value proposition. So I'll see.